Cool. Then yeah, welcome everybody who joined us today on our, I guess it's a third one, the user group event we have. And today we will talk about Adobe Commerce architecture. And Alex will tell you much more about, by the way, Alex, you prefer to be called Alex or Alexander?
Better Alex.
Alex, okay, good. So Alex will tell you a lot about architecture, I hope, in Adobe Commerce world. Before we will start, we will have some small housekeeping slides. I want to share, and there will be some announcement from Adobe. I want to share, first of all, our hosts. So it's me, Alex. If you don't know me yet, and if you are the first on this event, I'm a commerce architect, technical team lead at Commerce Reply, currently located in Germany, Ukrainian born. And with me, I have a Kelly.
Hello. Bonjour. Grüß euch. No. So I'm from Sunstar. I live in Switzerland. I'm American, living in Switzerland, and I lead a department called Digital Strategy and Services for Sunstar. In short, that's a global marketing technology stack, and we're a big Adobe house. I think 6 solutions now, and commerce is definitely a favorite. So super excited to be here and learn with you all.
Cool, thanks a lot. And before I will give word to Alex still, so we have some house rules of user group event. I have to share before every event. So we are not self-promoting event. So we are not pitching or self-promoting ourselves. It's rather the community when you can come, share openly, and talk about your ideas, about your experiences. And please don't contact people outside of the user group without their consent. So if somebody don't want to talk to you, please don't force them. And another one, we're recording this meeting. So if you don't want to be recorded, you can always watch the recording afterwards. It will be available. You can also just mute yourself, turn off the screen, change your name if you want to stay anonymous, or you can basically watch it online later on if you want to drop off straight away. Then we have some events which I want to announce. We will have another user group events about product recommendation with Manav and Michael. And recommend to join. I will also, you can rewatch these videos if you will not be able to make a screenshot of this QR code. You can go to user groups of Adobe and find it there. We will also start at Adobe Commerce Champion Office Hours. So that's basically the space similar to the user group we have here, where you can talk to Adobe Commerce champions, ask the questions, listen about some innovations, what's coming in with Adobe World, and so on. So I would recommend to join this chapter, and then you will just start to get notification if you will join it. Adobe Summit is coming, April 19 till 22, and registration currently is live. So if you plan to go, hurry up. I guess prices will go up very soon. And also on Adobe Commerce, there will be Adobe Commerce Skill Exchange and a summit. I believe is the first one this year. Basically, the space when you can meet the Adobe Commerce champions, you can meet another Adobe Commerce specialist, as from business, as also from development side. Great place for networking, and there will be some sessions dedicated to this one. So don't miss it up if you're on a summit. And on the summit, we'll be also announce the finalist of the 2026 Experience Maker Award. So another one. There are a new community group for marketing professional exploring AI together from Adobe. Join on Experience League. AI is part of our life for last years already. We cannot go away from it, and it's developed faster than we want to. And also Adobe certification. If you're not certified, go to certificationadobe.com. For me, it was always a challenge to find the latest. Like being certified first about 15 years ago with Magento. It always then to challenge to find where it's exactly located and where it's been migrated next year. But at this moment, It's at certification.adobe.com, so feel free. And yeah, let's come back to the business. Olex, what to you?
Well, first of all, hello everybody, and thank you, Alex, for having this opportunity to speak here, and thank you, Kelly. I'm a technical guy who has over a decade of experience doing e-commerce, mostly working with Magento and Adobe Commerce. I Adobe subject matter expert in I think 4 out of 5 certifications. Maybe it's something changed in there. I only missing the front end one. I also active contributor to Magento open source and former Adobe. That was Magento Master Maker in 2020. So this is about me. I think to start my slides. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
That was my last slide. So.
All right. So perfect. Now you should see it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
It's good.
Perfect. Great. So today we are going to explore what's under the roof, and at the end of today's session, I will share with you a technical decision framework for choosing right e-commerce architecture. That was about me, as already mentioned, my few achievements until there. And here we go. So I want to start it from just looking back into history, and if, I don't know, someone here is longer than 26 years working in e-commerce, then they would probably remind that those days, historically, e-commerce looked much different. Because nowadays we are standing in a very crowded place, and for those who want to start doing e-commerce, for those merchants who are picking their e-commerce platform, it can create a paradox of choice. So basically, the more options you have to choose from, the harder to make the decision and the less satisfied you will be with it. So for today, I want to focus not on specific platforms, of course, except Magento and Adobe Commerce. Today, I want to talk more about different architecture and approaches that these vendors are offering for merchants to do their e-commerce. Today, we are going to talk about SaaS or managed e-commerce solutions, about platforms with open code, or as we usually call them, monolithic platforms, and about composable commerce, or how to work with e-commerce solution in distributed environment. And to simplify it, let's make an analogy with real estate. So basically, the overall architecture is about compromises. So if we want to start and if we want to prioritize the time to market, then we usually need to either sacrifice and change autonomy or predictability at scale. As monolith on the later stage with complexity, it can explode and will require a lot of resources to be maintained. But many businesses starting either with monolith and SaaS and moving into distributed environments to get benefits both of autonomy to doing changes and to have a predictable solution that works efficiently at scale. This was about theory, about the theoretical part, and today we will look more into the practical part. So we'll compare 3 approaches in 5 different criteria. We will look into investment footprint, into extensibility, or how we can extend things with each of the approaches, how they are capable to be integrated with other systems, how the architecture defines the performance, and what is required from the team and organization to work with this with this approach efficiently. So, solution as a service or managed e-commerce, it could be compared with like start renting apartments. You basically don't need much to start doing it. You need to sign a contract, probably pay deposit, and you also need to pay for the first month, and you're ready to go. Of course, there will be some additional expenses that you will need to move your furniture in, and that's basically it. You will live in a place, the place will be maintained by landlord, and landlord will also expect you to pay your rent and also pay your utility bills. And if you decide to move out, to change your place, there will be also some additional expenses with it. But the general rule with managed e-commerce platforms, with SaaS, that's the cost of ownership of the platform will grow with your business. So more your money you earn, the more orders you have, the more you will pay for staying and using this platform. How we can extend it? Typically, we can use different set of configurations. Usually, we also have access to the storefront. We can use it. Some platforms allow it use it as a headless way. Some provide us with a template language that can be used to extend the storefront. Many solutions have an application stores, so we can use plugins and extensions written by some other agencies, and it will just require you to install to start using. Some platforms have runtime extensions like Shopify functions or Salesforce scripts, and also we can integrate third-party services, third-party solutions by using an API webhook of e-commerce SaaS platform. But there are trade-offs. Usually API and usage of API in SaaS, it has limits, and the limit will depend on the tier that you're using. The more you pay, and basically the higher will be the rate caps. Data model and workflow, they are constrained. So you can extend them usually, but you cannot over-define them. And if you integrate in multiple SaaS platforms, you'll still need to have something in the middle, either something that you need to pay for or something that you will need to build and host on your own infrastructure. That's example of a code chart, some abstract SaaS platform that we're using for e-commerce. We can see it in the middle. Basically, it's a black box. The complexity of the domain is hidden behind it. It can be extended only in the places where vendor allow you to extend, and most of the work is done around the platform. Here we also can talk about performance. From good things that usually when we start using SaaS platform, we receive it as a well-optimized critical path. Also, it's relatively fast. It's a single application that's provided with e-commerce service. On the other hand, if we'll start using too many applications, our third-party applications that we integrate with our platform, it can result to upload. So there will be many different requests that will go and will be called in addition to our critical path, and will result into additional time that will require to perform the request. From other things, that SaaS really loves boring clients. So if you're a client who fits into the model, into profile of the SaaS platform, that you are safe. But if you are using SaaS platform and you are not typical client, for example, you have too many orders for the SaaS platform, or you have too many customers or active users, you can start reaching the parts of the system that are not well optimized to that scale. So this is something that's nice to keep in mind when choosing the SaaS platform. Team readiness. SaaS in many cases is merchant-led, so it's built in the purpose that many things can be achieved without actually involving engineers to doing it. You will, of course, need to follow vendor rules, and the integration, even if you're the most brilliant integrator, there will be limitations. As I said, data model and data workflow, they are constrained, and you cannot over-define them to fit into the business workflows. You will need to fit the business into the workflow that SaaS platform provides to you. And many platforms allow you easy start even without having technical expertise, but with growing complexity and scale, it's usually important to have someone who can navigate the future growth and to avoid possible limitations and walls that business can face by using platform where basically complexity is outsourced to another vendor. 1 year ago, we had a client. They came to us and they shared with us their story and their pain. They started, this client is a big furniture seller in Europe, and they started their commerce journey by using SaaS platform. They started with one store and they opened it in really fast. It took them like 2 or 3 weeks. They almost immediately, in a really short term, they get back they returned their investments, and they were extremely happy. It was really great success for their business, so they decided to move on. They opened 4 more stores, and here they faced the first limitation with the model and the platform that they choose. It has limitations of synchronizing data among your stores. And even like things like inventory, if you're selling from the single source, even the inventory, it still need to be synchronized manually. So for this, they started to use third-party application that do this work for you. And of course, it would require additional fees and additional investment to make this process run. But still, there it made their e-commerce possible. They continued and opened 5 more stores. And it was good until they decided to extend to even 4 new countries. And at that moment appeared that there's another limitation, that with this platform, you can have only 10 stores, 10 countries supported. And if you decide to go more, you need to sign another contract to have like another copy of license for you to make it possible. So when they ended up to having a two separated contracts to run their 14 stores for a single brand. And looking on this, I'm thinking that it's crazy, considering that only for this setup, without anything else, they're paying like 5 digits monthly. But don't get me wrong here. I'm not trying to tell that SaaS is bad. SaaS actually is great, and SaaS made e-commerce really affordable for many businesses, because many merchants, they can start doing e-commerce just in a very short period, and it doesn't require them to invest much, basically, before they can start receiving the first orders and start selling the first goods online. But SaaS is not a single bullet, and it has limitations, and it's great when it fits. And if it doesn't fit to the business model, then you can have a hard time to fit in the business model into the SaaS platform. So SaaS is great, but we should still remember who owns the place. It's good fit for companies that have a limited technical expertise, but they want to launch quickly and they want to start selling online really fast. For those who have the most common e-commerce setup, so nothing fancy, we just need to show our products and sell it to the customers. And for those who are looking like an e-commerce core into their bigger setup, bigger ecosystem, like in composable commerce. Not the best for organizations who want to have full control over the code and the data. And for those who have a non-trivial and complex data flows and data models, that could be not the fit for the SaaS platforms. And for those who are looking for in-depth customizations of the platform, that will be also a bad choice. And as well, the fees, they are scaling as well with the scale of the business. So some businesses, they could be sensitive to it. And in contrast to SaaS, running a monolith, it's like to building your own house. It will require your capital expenditure in the beginning. It will also require time to do so. You will need to find someone who will connect it to the infrastructure. So you'll need to lay wires and run plumbing. And of course, there will be a maintenance here and there. So I need to rectify things time to time. There are also additional investments. And with some platforms, you also need to pay for a license for the platform itself and fees for third-party extensions and solutions that you're using. But monoliths can become really predictable in a steady phase when we are reaching the point when we are not doing much of development from there. And the overall rule for the monolithic platforms is like cost of ownership is growing with accumulated complexity. How we can extend? Well, basically here why we love the traditional way of doing e-commerce, because monolithic platforms can be extended in many different and beautiful ways. Let's look, for example, at Magento 2. We have a scoped configurations per store or per application area. We have a modular architecture. We can use third-party extensions that can be installed and can extend our base functionality. We have a theming mechanism where you can install already available themes or build our own. Dependency injections, plugins, events, and observers. These things why many backend developers love working with Magento 2. Also, API as well as data models and data workflows, they're up to us developers to be extended and over-defined in the way that suits best to the business needs. But there are also trade-offs. Well, first of all, that upgrades could be painful, especially those that are containing backward incompatible changes. Also, the further we are customizing the core, the higher will be maintenance cost for our platform. With SaaS, usually it's not possible to change the core logic. With monoliths, it's possible, but it's expensive to maintain. And having too many systems integrating and depending on a single monolith can result in a tight coupling. And we'll talk about it later. So here's an example of a code chart. Here we can talk about performance. Well, first of all, the good thing that monoliths usually have a very good performance, as it's a single system. There is no network latency, and usually we are using the single pool of resources that are all also achievable, could be reachable from our application. From even better things that if we are not happy with the performance, we can optimize it, as we have a full access to the code, we have a full access to the database, so we can perform a code optimization or database tuning to make it better. From the best things that it's relatively easy to make it slow, and usually when you're making it slow, you are making the whole system slow. And another thing that it's hard to scale. Of course, when we have one big application, we can buy a bigger server, but it becomes very expensive very soon. We can try to scale it horizontally by adding new nodes. That can work in some extent, but we are still relying on a single pool of shared services. And it could be like buying a really, really big house, but still having a one bathroom. So in a high traffic, it can become a bottleneck. Monolithic platforms, they are in general engineering-led, so it will require strong technical ownership and architecture vision to build it right and to maintain it well. DevOps skills, they are required. Even if you're using PaaS, where third-party organization and taking care of your infrastructure, you still need to understand what's going on and which options do you have and which options will be better in your particular case for your particular client and for particular business. Automated testing is becoming indispensable with growing complexity on the later stages of life cycle of monolithic e-commerce platform. And agency partnership works really well here, because especially for merchants who don't want or cannot afford to hire an engineer on a full time, they can use agencies that can provide just hours that they need to do their e-commerce, as well as an expertise that the agency has in the industry. 3 years ago, we had a client. They shared with us their story. They had Magento 1 that they started 13 years ago. Over a decade, it overgrew with many different integrations and become a part of their business. And when the time came to migrate to Magento 2, the best affordable option that they had at that moment is actually to integrate Magento 2 into Magento 1. So Magento 2 became a storefront, then receiving orders and sending it back to Magento 1 that became an enterprise service bus in their organization. So monoliths can grow and can become really big, but with the growing complexity comes the price. It's become fragile and it will require additional investments just to keep it running. It's good fit for organizations that already have technical teams on board, and for those who need to do business in heavily regulated industries where the ownership over code and data are required. Companies that have not trivial business models and want to build a custom data workflows for their commerce, monolith is a good choice. And also for those who are aiming for a prolonged steady phase, as it can be efficient in terms that it scales with added complexity, but not with growing revenue or turnover. Not the best for those who cannot afford or not willing to pay for continuous maintenance and upgrades, for those who want to move fast and change different business capabilities on the fly, and for those who already have a multi-team setup where different teams are responsible for different part of the business. Usually having 3 or 4 teams working on a single monolith, it's a nightmare, and better to avoid these situations. And also for those e-commerce businesses that need to support extreme scaling patterns, where you need to scale up and down quickly and efficiently. And in contrast to previous two, composable commerce, it's not about like a single property. It's more like to be a mayor of a small town. You have different buildings, you have different houses, different facilities, and your job here is to provide an infrastructure and make sure that your town is operating efficiently and you're still keeping it as a livable place for your citizens. How we are getting there? Usually we are starting from a single place. This one is a bit close to reality. And we are doing our e-commerce, everything is fine until the moments where we start realizing that the initial offering of the solution that we're using is not enough any longer. We want to have more features, more sophisticated features, sophisticated data workflows. And at this point, that's this moment, that's when kids grow up and live in parents' nest, we start moving our business capabilities to solutions outside of our initial platform. And this process continues until we realize that actually there are too many things that are depending on our single great monoliths, whatever it's open source or SaaS. And in this moment, we need to understand that it should collapse and it should be rebuilt into an enterprise architecture. And here, basically, integrations is the first class citizen. Of course, each of the services, they are still important. All of these cogs, they need to continue spinning and spinning efficiently to make the business working, to continue business working. And the most important part here is still how they are working together to make a single from different parts. And why this is so important? Because when we are using SaaS, then our business domain is outsourced to the SaaS vendor. When we're using a monolith platform, then the business domain is obscured behind the engine or a framework that we are using. And if we are working in a composable commerce, then it's up to us how to arrange these things, and it's becoming our responsibility to make it work efficiently and to build it properly. We have a client. They are still client of us for over 15 years. They started 15 years ago as a small Danish startup that decided to sell coffee online. Over a decade, they grew dramatically. They become a really big business. And over that decade with Magento 1, it was classical Magento 1 monoliths, when you have everything integrated and coupled on a single system. And it became really hard for them to see the options how they can move forward to Magento 2 without like keeping their business as it is. So at that moment, they decided to migrate Magento 2 and make things differently. They agreed to walk a few extra miles to build a composable commerce at that moment. It's a hybrid approach, as we still have a Magento that's basically responsible for experience layer, to provide the data to the storefront and to receive the information from the customer, and everything else behind it happens in Azure environment. They're using Azure Service Bus, they're using Azure Functions to build an integration layers, and everything is connected to third-party SaaS systems. Some of them are SaaS, some of them are written especially for this client by different agencies, and it make each of these components are replaceable and or definable with basically continuing their journey. So if there's some point, even the last 3 years when we are exploiting this setup, when we are running the e-commerce with this client, we already proved the concept multiple times by replacing the different solutions and changing them within different providers. And to build it, it took us 2 years and effort of 3 separated teams who are working to make it possible. And yeah, we did it with Magento open source at that time. So composable commerce, it required time to be built, and it also required investments. It will have a distributed cost, that there will be multiple services that you will need to pay for, and most likely they will scale unevenly, most likely the load on the different services will be different. You also need to consider that there will be multiple teams that need to be coordinated, so it will result in an extra overhead that also will require additional expenses. And the general rule that cost of ownership, it will grow fast at the beginning, but it will slow down dramatically when the solution will mature, when you achieve the point when basically the domain for your specific business is already technically implemented in the solution. How we can add new features? Well, we can use benefits of decoupled architectures. We have separated front-end, back-end. The API-first services and event-driven architecture that can be used to basically to make possible using of best-of-breed approach. That's where you can change different systems and take the best from the market. For example, if we are, if we are not happy with the PIM system, we can replace easily Akeneo with InRiver, just because it provides us the composable commerce provides us with contract-based extensibility setup. Contract-based extensibility allows us to do whatever we want with the services. We can rewrite them. We can even rewrite them in a different language. We can replace them if it's SaaS, or we can replace SaaS with self-written solution. We can have an independent life cycles. We can add new features and new releases for it. We can do whatever we want until the service is not breaking the contract that it's declared to the ecosystem where it's been integrated. But there are, of course, trade-offs. So enterprise-grade integration complexity. As I said, that integration is our first-class citizen. So we would need to consider each system and each data flow that we are adding to our business carefully, as it can impact the whole town. They also come with drawbacks of microservices, so our data ownership can be distributed among different systems, and we will need to take care of consistency management. Also, that's require strong kind of culture of maintaining that service contracts. So basically, when different teams are doing different releases, that they shouldn't break each other. If we want to place an order with a monolith, usually it's looking straightforward. Our storefront sending requests to the backend. Backend can reach third-party services if it requires some additional data, and then we have an example order that we can move forward to other systems. But if we look deeper into details, we can see that this process usually not that straightforward. There are many different parts, and we need to consider multiple steps to make this process possible. And if we decide at some point to keep the same relationship between our different domains in our e-commerce and moved into a distributed environment. So basically, here we are. Good things that right now we have many different services, and we can have benefits of microservices. So we can release them independently. We can change them. We can write them in a different language. We can assign it to other teams, so the other team will take care of them. But they also come with some additional challenges. First of all, communication now is not for free. If in a monolith, making call from one part of the system is almost for free, with this in distributed environment, it will have a network latency. So we will need to pay a small fee for every call that we are performing. And this network latency can accumulate, especially for a long chain of requests, and it can result into a performance impact. Another drawback is that network is a dark and creepy place, and packages, they can be lost there. So for this, we'll need to consider mechanism like retrying. But what if we send a request to our inventory service to reserve some quantity, and we haven't heard back, and we decided to retry and send the same request back? In result, we can receive a double reservation. For this case, we will need to consider the potency. So our reservation will be handled only once, even if we haven't heard back after the first call. Also, everything can happen. For example, what if our third-party service that's responsible for tax calculation is going down? Usually, it can result that our internal tax service that depend on it will also go down. And if our cart is dependent on tax service, internal tax service, it will go down as well, and we'll put our checkout down. From good things that our catalog and search, they will most likely continue working, but I think it's not something that we'll want to achieve, because even if our tax services is not working, that usually maybe we don't want our customers to finish the order before we receive the precise calculation of all taxes, but maybe we want to allow them to still continue adding a product to the cart and still continue moving through the checkout, maybe until they will click place order button, the tax service will go up. So for this, we'll need to consider some resilient patterns like a bulkhead or circuit breaker. I know that there are many things to digest, but I just want to tell that distributed environment, it's come with new challenges, and you need to be ready to deal with it, because in many cases, these challenges could result in additional expenses and additional time and overhead that need to be spent actually to make this solution work. And it's not something that usually recommended to ignore when making the decision. So, team readiness. Well, first of all, it's an architecture-led, so we'll need to have a strong technical leadership and architecture ownership, because this is the moment when the business people and technical people, they are working together to build a single vision of the business, of the processes, and how its data is circulating through all of them. Teams, a multi-team setup is not required, but usually it will be a result of working into composable commerce, as Conway's law tells us that the structure and the architecture of our solution will depend on the structure of the organization. So it's nice when our organization is already can have different teams that are responsible for different business capacities. It's easier to start implementing things into different teams. It also requires non-trivial DevOps skills, as it's a distributed environment with many different services that need to be deployed, monitored, and issues also need to be traced. Also, it requires contract discipline, so not different teams won't break each other during a new release, and it requires advanced testing practices. It's not enough to build unit tests to test the component in the isolation. It's also required to see the bigger picture, to use like end-to-end testing and contract testing to make sure that our services are still following contracts that they are declaring to the ecosystem. It's good fit for big companies that's looking for strategic flexibility, or for those who want to move fast and change different business capacities on the fly. It's a great choice for those who are looking really complex business operations, and they need to deal with a real scale. And for those who already have a multi-team setup that is structured around different business capabilities. And for those who already have a technically prepared team with strong technical and DevOps skills. Not the best for small businesses, for those who are looking at short return of investments, or for those who are preparing for prolonged steady phase. That could be an overkill for them. And for teams that are not feeling comfortable working in distributed environments. Because if team has issues that are not related in a scale right now, then scaling it up into microservices will result in distributed issues in the different applications. Last year, Adobe released 2 SaaS services, and it's overall fits into 2 categories that I mentioned today, both SaaS and composable ready. Let's talk about Adobe Commerce Optimizer. Adobe Commerce Optimizer provides you with an opportunity to integrate your current e-commerce ecosystem into Adobe Experience Cloud, or integrate Adobe Experience Cloud into your current e-commerce ecosystem. So it's provides us with a catalog model that can be integrated with data storages that are already working for the business, and it can be integrated with a headless storefront that by default is Edge delivery service. We'll receive our main pages, and we'll still keeping our cart and checkout from the current solution that we are using. The another product is Adobe Commerce as a cloud service. I found this big and scary diagram in the documentation, so I decided to rewrite it to a bit simpler form. Adobe Commerce as a cloud service is our old good known Magento, but this time it comes as a multi-tenant SaaS. That means that we don't have access to the code, and we cannot just install third-party extension or go into the implementation and rewrite something and use composer patches that we are providing. It's us required to use different another extension techniques. Also, Adobe Commerce as a cloud service, it comes with an integrated catalog model, live search, and recommendations, as well as Adobe Payments. So it's everything already there when you start using it. The ways how we can extend it, and this is basically where it's also getting into the good fit of composable commerce implementation, that we are receiving an event-driven environment with Adobe I/O events, where we can transmit data from our commerce core into different systems by using of also app builders to provide an integration layer. And we also have orchestrated API mesh that provide us with an experience layer, so we can change or over-define or extend an API, GraphQL API model by working with API mesh. And it also comes with an already prepared storefront for you with an Edge delivery service. So these terms, it's fitting into two categories. It's already SaaS solution that you have the complexity outsourced to the Adobe, as well with the infrastructure that's composable ready, and where you can start integrating your third-party systems to build your ecosystem around Adobe. Here we go. Decision framework. SaaS is a good option for those who want to start fast and can afford to transfer, to outsource responsibility for their platform to another vendor. Monoliths provide us with the flexibility to do whatever we want, but within also come a price that we will need to maintain it. And composable commerce is for those who are preparing to play in a long run, and they're ready to walk a few extra miles in the beginning to build an environment where other solutions can be easily integrated to build an e-commerce ecosystem. So thank you very much for your attention. And yeah, I guess that's time for questions.
Thank you, Alex. That was very, very interesting even for me, because like I found a very nice summary of the different approaches which let's say I'm using in daily life. And this table, so I had some also questions for myself, wanted to ask you, but then I saw your last table, and I guess it's summarized more or less, because for me always curious how so let's say I just searched for some SaaS platforms for the e-commerce, right? And I see the price is like 25 euro per month. And for sure, if I would decide to go for even not Adobe Commerce, but for example, the open source solution, which I technically not paying anything, but when I are talking to agency, they giving me like some 4-digit price for the integration of everything. For sure, like as a non-technical person, having no clue about the technologies there, I would choose $25 one, right? So it's have a nice website, it's nice pictures, looks beautiful. And then so my question was, what shall I do, or which like bullet points I need to have in front of me for do not make a mistake in the beginning, because the decision is business critical for me in the future. And I guess this table is it's illustrated quite nice.
I think it's also a great point, Alex, because working with stakeholders, business stakeholders, and we see this a lot across Sunstar. There might be a market, for example, they have Shopify, right? And then they say, but the Shopify, it only costs us $500 a year. But that's just for a license. It doesn't include any of the technical consulting, additional charges. So it ramps up pretty quickly. So I think it's also the table's great. Love the explanations. I think that's really also very business friendly. So anyone technical trying to think about how could I easily explain this to stakeholders? I love this analogies with houses and villages. This is really great. And then I think the where the cost comes in is really important for stakeholders and for leadership to understand, because you have to be, so for example, like Sunstar, we're not a tech house, right? Our brands are about oral care, and depending on which market, there can be different products, but we're better off, we're finding, with SaaS solutions, because it's just less development intensive, and we want to work with a partner who can take that on. We don't want to build all of the development skills in-house. And so there are a lot of business, like just thinking about the industry that you're in has a lot of impact also. Like, will you be able to have a large enough technical team to really maintain, composable or even the monolith, because we move from PaaS to SaaS. So Where does that budget go if you have a restricted maintenance budget, right? So super interesting and great food for thought.
Yeah, thanks a lot. We have some questions here from Vasil. For example, which models keep us best with the evolution of e-commerce toward AI?
Oh, that's a very good question, because it's very also depends on the vendors. I mean, if we are looking on the different offerings, we can see not only the model, but actually the vendor, the roadmap that they are providing. Because some SaaS vendors, they already have a predefined, like, the vector where they will continue going through this AI evolution, revolution, how we are seeing it. And the other SaaS vendors, they can stay like behind and not taking some active steps. Maybe they will provide some features here and there, but overall they are not providing an overview. So it's important to consider that if we are seeing in a SaaS, that we are locked together with the vendor roadmap, and we can see where the journey with this particular vendor will lead us through this AI movement. With the monolith, we can do whatever we want with it. Of course, it would require us sometimes, maybe for some tasks, it will require us to rewrite a huge chunk of the inner part of the implementation if we want to have something super sophisticated, for example. And they will come with additional costs, and they will require with additional time. So probably I don't need to have more developers to maintain this solution. But here we can implement whatever we want, and here we can also rely on the community that's built around this kind of platform solution that they can also provide with the offerings. So here we are depending not only on the SaaS vendor, but here we're also depending on other people who are in the boat with the platform that we are using. And with composable commerce, that we usually can monitor the market itself and see the different offerings that markets provide us. The particular some parts, some small tasks that we want to use AI for, I don't know, like very smart, intelligent AI-based translations or AI-based recommendations that are not new, but still, or some search that understand the natural language and can provide you with very accurate and sophisticated algorithm that will have a really great conversion rate in the result. So in this case, we are like looking into 3 different dimensions, and we will need to understand what's our budget, what's like our partnership and our vendor, for example, if it's SaaS, or what's our kind of community if it's monolith, or what's going on in general in the market, and which kind of new solutions we could expect, or we are seeing that something is ongoing in terms of development that we can integrate into our composable ecosystem. So yeah, I would say it depends.
Yep. Got it. Thanks. Looking at the time, we have 1 minute left before. So there is one last question, or even 2. Before I will read them, I want to paste 2 links in the chat. So the Olex has also the podcast, which I want you to engage to join. I mean, you can listen. There are some interesting topics around e-commerce. So yeah. So we have 2 questions left. Wait, where was it? I lost it. So yeah, when the SaaS be available for test and verification? So I believe it's Mint Adobe Commerce SaaS. I mean, Adobe Commerce SaaS is already available. If you're the partner, you can ask Adobe to get an access to it. I believe as a private person, you cannot do it, but I would just also try to write to Adobe in general, because so usually if, let's say, you have a customer who is interested in it, you can always organize from Adobe that they will provide the sandbox if necessary. That's at least on my knowledge. So from Philip, last one. Is my understanding correct that Adobe Commerce SaaS it's even more compatible with Adobe Builder, Adobe I/O, and therefore are better suited for third-party integration than Adobe Commerce PaaS?
I can answer, but
You-
if I'm not wrong, you can
You
correct
can,
me.
no, you can
Yeah.
answer. I mean, yes.
Yeah. So overall, it's I would say that they are very similar in this way because they are providing with data models that are being sent into event-driven environment, and from here we can have different apps written on the JavaScript, on the Node.js that can also receive these events and process them, sent to some other systems. And you can do it the same with both with SaaS and with PaaS. The only difference that with SaaS you have a restricted model in terms that the events there, they can be changed only in the way that the Adobe Commerce allows you to change. I mean that if you want to add some attributes, then you can do it through an API, but you cannot just go into the code and add some extra fields or like add some event that will come inside from Adobe SaaS. But with PaaS, you can do it. The other case that's even if you're using PaaS and doing something there, you will then need to take care of maintaining these things, your customizations. When with SaaS, it will be automatically updated and maintained by Adobe.
Yeah. So thanks a lot. I see we're out of the time. Our recording is still running. Surprisingly, last time it's dropped, I guess, exactly at 6. Maybe something changed, but that's good. I believe there are no more questions. Then I mean, I'll wrap it up. Thanks a lot, Alex, for your participation. I mean, that
Thank you very
you
much.
answered our call to outside for the people to join and talk to us. So yeah, I would also engage, like, okay, we almost everybody already dropped. We have 9 people left. But if somebody want to speak on user group events, reach us. We're always open for the interesting topics. So,
Absolutely. And this will be posted. This session will go live, I think,
I guess
soon.
several days on Adobe YouTube.
Yeah,
Yes.
they're pretty good with it. Do we also upload the deck with that or no?
No, usually not. No.
Yeah.
But I
So
mean, it's everything recorded. So
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Perfect. It was a great session. Super helpful, very informational. Thanks so much, Alex. It's really
Thank you very much.
fantastic.
Thank you very
for the
much.
opportunity.
Thanks everyone for joining,
Great.
and see you next time.
Have a
Bye
pleasant
bye.
evening.
Bye everybody.
Bye bye.